BooTube Tales, where nightmares get a spotlight. Story 1. The Missing Club. Picture this. While flipping through dusty yearbooks in the school library, I stumbled upon something peculiar: the Midnight Science Society. Page after page, year after year, there they were, a group of students huddled together, their faces lit with mysterious enthusiasm. But here's the strange part. No one, not even the longest-serving teachers, could remember this club ever existing. I dug deeper, tracing the club's history back through the decades. The photos started in 1999, showing 6 bright-eyed seniors, their names neatly listed below. They all graduated that year, or at least, that's what the records showed. All except one, Sarah Chen. Sarah's presence in these photos became an obsession of mine. While her fellow club members disappeared after graduation, she remained. But something was off. In 2000, she looked slightly younger. By 2005, she could have passed for a sophomore. The 2010 yearbook showed her looking like a fresh-faced freshman. I started interviewing alumni, tracking down the other members of that 1999 group. Each conversation left me with more questions than answers. They all remembered being in the club, but their memories were hazy, like trying to recall a dream. And Sarah? None of them could remember her clearly, just a vague sense that she was always there. The school's basement still houses the old science lab where they supposedly met. Late one night, I found myself down there, flashlight in hand. The air was thick with dust and decades of silence. On a back shelf, behind old textbooks and broken beakers, I found a leather-bound journal. Inside, in neat handwriting, "Time is not a river flowing in one direction, but a loop we can learn to bend." The last entry was dated May 15th, 1999. The signature at the bottom, Sarah Chen. But here's what keeps me up at night. It wasn't written in fading ink like the rest. The pen marks looked fresh, as if they'd been written yesterday. And yesterday's yearbook photos? The Midnight Science Society is still there, and so is Sarah, looking younger than ever, her smile holding secrets that span decades. Some say the past is behind us, but in the case of the Midnight Science Society and Sarah Chen, I'm not so sure. Maybe time isn't as straightforward as we think. Maybe somewhere in a classroom at midnight, the experiment that began in 1999 is still ongoing, and Sarah is still there, unraveling the mysteries of time itself. Corkstau. The hallway that looped. Have you ever experienced that eerie feeling where time seems to stand still? Where reality bends in ways that make you question everything you thought you knew? Let me tell you about something truly unsettling that happened at Riverside High School last Tuesday. Mark Thompson was running late for his AP chemistry class. Again. Nothing unusual there, just another teenager dashing through the empty halls after the final bell. But what happened next defies explanation. As he sprinted down the third-floor corridor, something felt off. The fluorescent lights above flickered slightly, casting strange shadows that seemed to dance along the walls. Mark kept running, his footsteps echoing against the worn linoleum floor, but the classroom door, room 327, never got any closer. At first, he thought he was just disoriented from running too fast. But after what felt like minutes of sprinting, he realized with growing panic that the water fountain he'd just passed was still right there beside him. And then he passed it again and again. The security footage from that morning tells an impossible story. There's Mark, clearly visible in his blue hoodie and backpack, running at full speed but going nowhere like a hamster in a wheel. But here's where it gets truly chilling. The walls of the corridor appear to be slowly closing in around him, inch by inch, frame by frame. The timestamp on the footage shows this went on for exactly 17 minutes. Then, just as suddenly as it began, everything snapped back to normal. The walls returned to their proper place, and Mark stumbled forward, finally reaching his classroom door. When questioned later, he said those 17 minutes felt like both an eternity and a split second. The school brought in structural engineers, paranormal investigators, and even quantum physicists. None could explain what happened that day. The security footage was authenticated. No signs of tampering or editing. To this day, that third-floor corridor remains unchanged, looking just like any other school hallway. But sometimes, when the light hits it just right, students swear they can see the walls pulse ever so slightly. And nobody, not even the chronic latecomers, runs in that hallway anymore. After all, who knows when the corridor might decide to loop again, trapping another unsuspecting student in its mysterious fold of space and time. Story 3. The Cafeteria Special. Picture this. Millbrook High's cafeteria was always a place of predictable horrors. Mystery Meat Mondays, questionable casseroles, and that eternal debate about whether the green beans were actually green anymore. But something changed last Tuesday. The lunch ladies, those unsung heroes in hairnets, unveiled what they simply called the special. The aroma was different. Not the usual institutional smell of defeat and overcooked vegetables. This was something else entirely. I watched Jenny, the pickiest eater in school, take her first reluctant bite. Her eyes widened. Then, something strange happened. She devoured the entire plate in minutes. Marcus, our star quarterback who usually survived on protein shakes, asked for seconds, then thirds. By the end of lunch period, the cafeteria had a line that stretched into the hallway. Students who'd packed their lunches were offering to trade their gourmet home-cooked meals for just a taste of the special. But here's where it gets weird. The next day, those same students were back, looking desperate. Their eyes had this glazed look, and they were talking about the special like it was some kind of miracle food. Some kids who'd never set foot in the cafeteria before were suddenly showing up, drawn by the whispered recommendations of their classmates. I started noticing things, like how Mrs. Peterson, our head lunch lady, would disappear into Principal Morgan's office every morning before service. Or how the kitchen doors, usually propped open, were now firmly closed during prep time. Then there was that list I glimpsed on the principal's desk when I was dropping off attendance sheets, a document labeled volunteers, with student names being added daily. Right next to it was an ancient-looking recipe book, secured with a heavy padlock. The most unsettling part? The students who'd eaten the special the most frequently started changing. Their skin took on this peculiar glow. They moved differently, almost mechanically. And their hunger seemed insatiable. Now I'm standing here in the cafeteria line watching as today's special bubbles enticingly in its serving tray. The lunch lady gives me that knowing smile as she asks, "Would you like some, dear?" And despite everything I've seen, despite all my suspicions, I find myself nodding yes. Because maybe, just maybe, I want to know what makes it so special. Even if I become another name on that mysterious volunteer list, locked away in the principal's desk. After all, what's the worst that could happen, right? Thank you for watching. Subscribe to BooTube Tales for more. Thank you for your support.